Hello everybody, welcome into my review. Today we are going to be doing a review of Shining Force: The Legacy of Great Intention for the Sega Genesis. If you have seen my top 5 Sega RPGs video, you'll know that number 1 I put Shining Force 3 as my favorite Sega RPG game of all time. Shining Force: The Legacy of Great Intention was made by Camelot Software Planning. They also made games that you might be familiar with, such as Golden Sun on the Game Boy Advance and the Mario Golf games as well. Shining Force released in 1992 in Japan and in 1993 in North America. Let's start talking about Shining Force and what this game is all about. So, Shining Force basically tells us about a young swordsman from the future named Max. Upon being washed upon the shores of Gardania, Max is found by someone named Lo, who becomes his new best friend, and he is taken to the town of Gardania to be helped. Max eventually recovers and he is then sent on a mission by the king to go investigate some nearby ruins because something suspicious has been going on there. Upon reaching the ruins, Max finds out that the evil Runefaust army is there and they have troops and they are attacking the area. They are planning to attack the nearby kingdom where Max is from, and they have to fight the Runefaust army in battle. Max and his group eventually realize that Runefaust and their army is up to no good and that they must put an end to them. After this happens, Max, the main character as the leader of the group, forms the Shining Force Army, a small army made up of different warriors who are swordsmen, mages, and archers who work together to try and stop the evil forces of Dark Soul and Runefaust. The story in Shining Force is really well told. The game moves at a fast pace, the story keeps you interested, and there's some pretty cool plot twists about the characters of the game as you go along, and some really cool cutscenes that happen throughout the story of the game. But overall, the real focus of Shining Force is in its gameplay, so let's go ahead and let's start talking about the gameplay of Shining Force and what this game plays like. Shining Force is a strategy RPG type of game, kind of similar to a game like Fire Emblem, where you have a battlefield, you have characters that you can control, and you can move these characters a certain amount of spaces, and then you can also attack enemies if you're within the range to attack an enemy. Every time you attack an enemy, there's a little cutscene that plays showing the animation of the character attacking the enemy, or the enemy attacking you if they're attacking you. Throughout the game, you'll battle with different characters that you recruit in between the battles of the game. One of the really cool things about Shining Force, and one thing that I really like so much about this game, is that in between the battles, you can go to different towns and different areas, and you can explore around and you can find hidden characters to join your group. You can find people to talk to learn more about the story, and you can also explore and find really good items that boost your character stats and make them more powerful. It's really cool that you can explore around in Shining Force, find new items, get your characters more powerful, and it's a lot of fun to do so. It's always a really good thing when an RPG game rewards the player for exploring and gives them really good rewards for exploring around. At towns in Shining Force, like other RPG games, you can also visit stores and buy better items for your characters to help them out in battle. In addition, there's just so many characters to recruit in the game, and that's a really cool thing that you can recruit so many characters from the towns and different areas of the game. You'll get characters who are warriors that fight with swords or axes. You'll get characters who are mages that can cast really powerful spells in battle. And then there's really unique characters who are not really warriors or mages, but for example, there's a character named Xylo later in the game who joins you, who is a wolf, and he's a character that can move very far in battle. He's very fast, and he's one of my favorite characters in the game, and he's a very fun character to play as during battles of the game. Battles take place on a variety of maps of different shapes and sizes in Shining Force. There's also different objectives in the map. Some maps you might have to defeat all enemies. Other maps you might have to make it to a certain point in the map, and even if you don't defeat the enemies, you'll still win the battle as long as you make it to the point you need to get to. One of the really great things about Shining Force is just how fun the battles in the game are. The battles are so much fun, and the characters all play differently from each other. For example, Max, the main character, is a swordsman, and he can do a pretty good amount of damage to one enemy if he attacks them, but Max can also take a pretty good amount of damage himself. Meanwhile, there's other characters of the game, for example, characters like Tao, who is a mage who can summon a bunch of fireballs down to hit a bunch of enemies at once, but because she is a mage character, she's very vulnerable to dying from enemy attacks, and because of that, you really got to position her in an area where she won't get attacked by enemies very easily, and where other characters can also back her up and help her out and protect her from enemy attacks. Shining Force is a game all about tactical positioning, moving your characters across the battlefield in an intelligent way, and navigating the battlefields and maps of the game to the best extent that you can so that you can win the fights. In this game, characters get more powerful by defeating enemies and gaining experience. Once they gain 100 EXP, a character levels up and their stats go up and they get more powerful. A really cool thing is that, like Fire Emblem, in Shining Force, characters can do what is called a class promotion, and they can promote to a better class and become a lot more powerful. Not only do they become a lot more powerful and get new abilities after a promotion, but they also get a completely different sprite, a completely different character design. The promotions in general are just absolutely awesome in Shining Force. In terms of game difficulty, Shining Force is really cool because I feel like it's a game where the player is really in control of the difficulty. In this game, it's a little bit more forgiving than some of the more old school Fire Emblem games where if a character died in those games, they were gone forever. In Shining Force, if a character dies, they aren't gone forever and you can go to a church and revive them. However, the game really is up to the player in terms of how difficult they want it to be. If a person mostly just focuses on going through the story, they don't go to battles and fight them repeatedly to level up, then the game can be really challenging at certain points of the game. In addition, if you're finding the game to be too difficult, you can also always go to a map, defeat a bunch of enemies, warp back to the church, and then head back to the battle again and refight it to keep leveling your characters. Because of this, the player has a lot of control over how difficult the game is. I can say that the first Shining Force definitely has some tricky parts if you don't overlevel too much. Even though for me this was not my first playthrough of Shining Force 1, and I played through the game multiple times before, even on my most recent playthrough I did of the game, I got game over at a few parts of the game because I made some mistakes during battles. And especially towards the end of Shining Force 1, the game gets a lot more difficult because enemies hit a lot harder, the maps you have to navigate a lot more intelligently, and you really have to be careful with how you position your characters and how you play the battles of the game. As far as the amount of time that Shining Force will take to beat, for a first-time player, the game will take somewhere between 20 to 30 hours to beat. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the stuff I really like in Shining Force 1, but now I want to talk about some of the flaws I find Shining Force 1 to have. The biggest flaw in Shining Force 1 is the inventory management in the game, in my opinion. So every character in the game can hold up to 4 items, including the main character Max. Now, like I mentioned, you can explore around and you can find treasure chests that have items inside of them, and then you can also buy items from stores. Now, here's the thing though, the main character Max can only carry up to 4 items. In order to pick up any item that he comes across or to buy another item, you must have a slot open in his inventory. If you don't, then you must go into Max's inventory, grab an item from there, give it to another character, drop the item, or sell the item. Because of this and the fact that you're picking up and finding a lot of items throughout the game, you're buying a lot of items throughout the game, you constantly have to move and micromanage Max's inventory throughout the game. And it can get pretty annoying as you go through the game, constantly having to micromanage Max's inventory so you can pick up more items and buy more items throughout the game. Some other flaws I find Shining Force 1 to have is that like some of the characters you join later on in the game are way too low of a level and require way too much investment to catch them up to the rest of your characters. For example, there's a character named Adam who joins near the end of the game, who joins at an incredibly low level, and it just takes way too much effort and time to catch him up to the rest of your characters, and that's another problem with Shining Force 1. I just wish the characters later in the game would have joined at a higher level. For example, like I mentioned, Adam just joins at way too low of a level, and that's a big problem with the game too. Overall, Shining Force 1 is an incredibly fun game. I very highly recommend it. It's a super enjoyable game, and the game is really a must-play game for anyone who's a big fan of RPG games or anybody who really likes Fire Emblem. If you like those types of games, definitely give Shining Force a try. But overall, I want to say a big thank you for watching the review. I really greatly appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also give me a follow on twitch.tv/Shockstorm, my Twitch channel where I do playthroughs of RPG games and other types of games, and I review them here on the YouTube channel and make other videos as well. Thank you all so much for watching the review. I really greatly appreciate it, and you all have a great day, and I will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one, everybody.